What if Billy Edwards is out for a while? And what if Daniel Neal plays really well in his stead? We got a quarterback competition potentially?
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Wisconsin Badgers fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. I'm your host, Ryan Harings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. I absolutely appreciate you. We are talking about quarterbacks today. What if Billy Edwards is out for a while? What can this team learn from playing a not very good Middle Tennessee State game? And then what's the Daniel Neal game plan? What would that look like? Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today to get started. Plan your futures bets now. Okay, love this show. I took all your comments, your thoughts. We're doing a community show because I love getting the voices of the community in. And this first comment is a banger. I absolutely love it. We talked about this a tiny bit on another show. The question came in off a YouTube channel. What if Billy's hurt for a while and Danny plays really well, beats Maryland, close win or loss against Bama? Who's the starting quarterback coming out of the bye? I love this question because the name Wally Pipp exists for a reason, right? Players getting replaced because of injury exists for a reason. And these are short seasons. College football is a short season. It's not the NBA with 82 games. It's not Major League Baseball with 162 games. You got 12, 13 games, 14. Maybe if you go on a run in the playoffs, you get a few more, obviously. But if Billy Edwards is out and he's hampered through no fault of his own, absolutely no fault of his own for sure. And this is a player that has come in and grabbed respect in that locker room, done everything right. But if he's hurt for a little while at the time, misses a couple more games, and Danny comes in and plays really well, let's say this week against Middle Tennessee State, who's not a good team, he comes in and he plays really well. And then he goes down to Bryant Denny against not a great Bama team, right? Against a team that struggled in week one against a mobile quarterback in Florida State, which Daniel Neal is. Let's say he goes down there and they pull the upset. Or it's a close game and Daniel Neal looks good on the road in Bryant Denny against Alabama. They come back the next week, they beat Maryland. You go into that bye 3-1, and Danny's looked good. I thought he looked decent against Miami of Ohio, coming in out of the bullpen without those first team reps. What if he comes in and the Badgers are 3-1 coming into the bye, and they looked really, really solid against Bama? Daniel Neal looked good. He looked good against Maryland. Is there a conversation that you would have? I think there is, because at that point, putting Billy Edwards back in, if he's been out for a while, you could run into some rust issues. You could run into maybe he's still not fully trusting the knee. If Daniel Neal's on a bit of a run and a guy who's going to be here next year, remember, Daniel Neal's here next year. Again, this is absolutely no shot to Billy Edwards at all, but you could be building momentum with a guy that's here next year, a guy that started all his entire freshman season at San Diego State and looked pretty good there. A 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 63% completion percentage. If he comes in these first couple games and he takes the bull by the horns and he looks really good and the offense looks like it's cohesive and it's working, it's a big risk changing that up. It is. It's an absolute risk to change up something that's working. And this is a team that it needs continuity. It would love to build quarterback consistency year after year instead of finding another new starter next year. Again, I'm not saying this will happen. And Danny could absolutely go down to Alabama and not look great. Maybe Billy's back sooner than that. I do think Billy brings a lot to this team. I've talked about it. I'm not advocating for it, but it's going to be really interesting if Daniel Neal plays really good football and Billy's out for a while. It's going to get interesting. And there's going to come a point if that's the scenario, and I'm not saying it is. But if that's the scenario, there's going to come a point where a decision is going to be interesting. And I do think Daniel Neal is going to play good this weekend. I think he's going to play strong this weekend. I don't know about Bama. A down Bama is still a wounded shark. A down Bama is still a really tough place to go and play. So let's talk about it more if and when it gets there. But I thought this was a great question from the community on the YouTube channel, so I wanted to talk about it. Same kind of concept from Grogan. Now we're just going to go through all of our questions here. Grogan says, I think if Billy's out 5 or 6 weeks, I think he's out 5 or 6 weeks minimum. If he comes back before that, I bet he's out again before the season. So he's talking about something that could be a lingering injury, knees, ankles, hips, that kind of stuff can linger. Hamstrings can linger. That's the other risk. If you make the switch back to Billy, he could get hurt again. It might make some sense just to have consistency at the quarterback spot. All right, let's get into the rest of these questions here. A lad says, it should be an easy game. We shall see. Even if, will it prove much? I talked about this a little bit on a show I did with Rajiv. What can you learn from this game? And I've thought about it more. What can you learn from Middle Tennessee State, who's not very good? Now, I will caution people, they should be better than they showed in week one. Their quarterback is a veteran guy. He threw for 3,000 plus yards last year, 3,000 plus yards the year before that. But what can you actually learn? I think a couple things, right? I think we can get a bit of a gauge on Daniel Neal. What's a full game plan for him look like? I think that's something we can actually learn this week. What do the coaches think the game plan should look like when Daniel Neal is the obvious starter? He's going to play. They know they're game planning for him. I think we're going to learn what that game plan for him looks like. So I think that's important. I think we're going to learn if this team can bully a bad team. That's the other part of it. Can this team physically really dominate a team that they should? And that matters. Teams have to have a killer instinct. Can this team do that? And that'll speak to some degree to the coaching staff too, the culture, the intensity. Are they able to just whoop a team that they should? We're going to learn some of those things this week. And then I think on the offense line, you're going to learn kind of the direction that the coaching staff is looking at. I don't think you're necessarily going to learn if the offense line is fixed. If they go out and play great against Middle Tennessee State, I don't think that means the offense line is fixed. Middle Tennessee State's just not very good. But what you are going to learn is what the coaches think the right path is. You're going to see where they're shuffling the chess pieces on that front five. And that is going to be interesting to see. What's the first group out there? What's the second group out there? Who's the left tackle? Who's the group in the second quarter, third quarter? Because I think they could try a couple different combinations. So I agree with you on the surface, lad. This is not a great team. It's going to be hard to take clear-cut things out of this, but you're going to see some coach philosophy stuff with a new quarterback, who they think is potentially the answers at offensive line. And then can this team just bully a bad team? We got to see it. So they did do it against Purdue last year. Someone pointed it out to me. I was like, when is the last time this team bullied somebody? And somebody in Discord's like, Purdue last year. I was like, oh, you're right. You're right. But they got to do it again. They got to do it this year. Okay, some more thoughts and comments and questions. This is Peter P. saying they gave Heinzen a chance even though he struggled in camp because he was a transfer brought in for this purpose. I feel like the coaches the last couple of years have been too nice. I don't think that's the case. I mean, first of all, thank you for the comment, Peter P. I don't think they've been too nice. I do think you're right in the sense that Heinzen was brought in for this purpose and they really wanted it to work. So that's what they stuck with. They didn't want to disrupt everything else and move people around. So he was brought in to be the left tackle. Can you do it? We are going to exhaust all possibility of this working. And I'm not saying they're even there yet, but I don't think it's a too nice thing. I just don't think they have a great option after Kevin Haywood went down. I think if they had a different piece in the bullpen they felt great about, or maybe a fully healthy Leighton Nelson or Benz or something like that, I think they would have pivoted to that. So I don't think it's a too nice thing. I just think this is one of those situations where there's probably not a great answer. Mike says, PFF rated Heinzen well at offensive guard, but not well at OT. Let's just move Brunner to left tackle, Heinzen to left guard, as the entire line shuffling is not ideal. I don't hate that, Mike. Full disclosure, I don't hate that. I think Heinzen, one of his strengths, like Heinzen's a D1 offensive lineman, has played a lot of ball. I think one of his strengths is run blocking. I think he has the ability to angle people off. He understands that aspect of football. I don't think it's a toughness thing. I just think on the edge, it's kind of a foot speed athleticism thing. I almost think him at guard, Brunner at left tackle makes sense. So I'm with you there, Mike. I don't think that's a terrible option. MB Anderson, good friend of the show, says Danny has guts and wheels. That's going to play. I agree. From an intangible standpoint, Daniel Neal, he's got some gunslinger to him. And I don't hate that. Now, physically, I don't think the arm strength is great. The size isn't great. But he will get outside the tackle box. He will get you 7 yards on a 3rd and 5 to move the sticks. And he is a leader. He has guts. That matters. Coach Fickle said he has athletic arrogance. I think that matters at quarterback. The great quarterbacks all have some degree of that, some degree of, I'm the guy, get out of my way. I think Danny's got that. And It's hard to be a really quarterback if you don't have it. All right, we're going to take a quick second here, come back, talk a little bit about the O'Neal game plan, what that might look like. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at DoorDash. I absolutely love DoorDash. And it's almost a weekend, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to look back on this week's MVP, who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, which for me is going to be a bunch of times. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Wisconsin Badgers, I talked about Preston Zachman last time. Let's talk Christian Allegro, who delivered in a big way across the defense. First drive of the game, third down. He gets off that center block, rocks the Miami of Ohio running back, stops him short. Third and fourth and one, they got a punt. He set the tone from the jump. No hesitation, no delay. And if you watched last year, if you watched week one, you could tell this performance wasn't a fluke. Allegro is on that streak. And just like Christian Allegro delivered for the Badgers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season long, and you could save $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive, Badger fans. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms applied, promo period through 11/18. Today's episode also brought to you by our incredible new friends over at Mazda. Just incredible, like the caliber of people we get to work with on this show. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do simply more. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, they go beyond style, beyond performance to deliver a driving experience that makes you feel alive in every single detail. As an athlete, watching these athletes that they play every weekend, those athletes have to focus on every detail. And that's exactly what Mazda does. From metallic accents, hand-stitched Napa leather, Mazda is the place to go if you want to elevate your driving experience. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like that, there's more to every player. There's also more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, let's get back into this. Let's talk a little bit about the Danny O'Neal game plan. We had a comment in here. I'll see if I can find it quickly, but I'll pick it out of here. I'll find it when I can find it. But the question was, what is the Danny O'Neal game plan, and can he throw the ball down the field? I don't think he gets enough credit for his arm. Let me start there with Danny O'Neal. And here's actually a comment from downstream. Danny can't throw the ball down the field. He's short and small like Locke. Ball's batted down, and he'll get destroyed in the pocket. Downstream, bringing the... Listen, every opinion on here is valid. Like, downstream man, I appreciate you on this for sure. I think he can throw the ball down the field. I mean, we saw it. We saw it with Ballard. Is it a rocket? No. But he can. He did it in Platteville too. He can throw the ball down the field. I think it's a similar arm strength to Braden Locke. I really do. Similar arm strength, similar stature. Braden maybe had a little more zip, if we're being honest. But I think he has enough to be a college arm. I don't think it's an NFL arm. I don't think it's a pro arm necessarily, but he has enough to be a college arm. He's short and small like Locke. That is true. Ball's batted down, will get destroyed in the pocket. Here's where it could be different. Downstream. Here's where it could be different. He's mobile. So where I think Locke got enveloped by the pocket, where he got contained, where he was trying to throw the ball through the forest and there's just tree branches everywhere, Danny can get out that pocket and create some passing lanes for himself, which leads into the point I was making about the Danny O'Neal game plan. I think the Danny O'Neal game plan is going to be a lot of two receiver reads, roll out of the pocket, maybe a receiver on kind of an out route and a tight end running a drag, or running back on a wheel and a tight end dragging behind him with a post going the other way, something like that. It's going to be, let's take a side of the field. And this is something Coach Anderson talked about as well in the Dairy Raid when I talked to him. Take a side of the field. We're going to make that your read, roll you out a little bit to ease the pressure on the offensive line, but to also get you out of that area where balls are going to get batted, and let your natural athleticism take over a little bit more. I think that's going to be kind of the Danny O'Neal game plan. A lot of play action, a lot of moving the pocket, RPOs, probably simplify the reads a little bit. You do miss that experience when Billy Edwards isn't out there, right? I'm talking a lot about the things Danny O'Neal might be able to do. You are missing the experience of a Billy Edwards. So I think the reads are going to be simpler, playing off play action, rollouts. I think that's the Danny O'Neal game plan. And I don't think he's going to get destroyed in the pocket, because I think he moves the pocket downstream. Okay, more of your comments. Let's get them. Let's get them. This one from ER. Regarding the inaccuracy of Billy Edwards' passes, I can't help but wonder if his knee impacted his ability to properly plant that foot in some situations. Now, it's an interesting point. I honestly hadn't thought about it much, ER, and I appreciate the comment. He did struggle a little bit on the deep passes, and we know he was nursing a bit of a knee issue in fall camp and fall practice. Is it possible that was still impacting him? Absolutely. And the fact that he got hurt in week one, it at least tells you it's possible that knee was still bugging him. It wasn't fully there, and he tweaked it because it was already tweaked, which would absolutely impact his accuracy and his performance. I think that's completely fair. You have to drive off your legs, you have to pivot, and he was under a lot of pressure. Like, he was not fully comfortable in the pocket, which is not his fault. The offensive line did him no favors. So I think that's a good point, and it's very possible. Arrogant Prickly says, why would we kick Mandel out? So this is in response to a comment of, what if we kick, again, some of this offensive line stuff is speculation, but there was a comment of, what if we kick Emerson Mandel out to tackle, we flip Riley Mallman, and we maybe start Kadenko at guard, or we start maybe Cubberly, or maybe it's Heinzen, whoever. Like, there's options. Why would we kick Mandel out? I think, so let me start by saying I'm not a huge fan of it. I think Emerson Mandel's best spot is at the guard, and I would love to get consistent reps there so he can develop as what I think is his highest ceiling spot. Now, you can move him to tackle this year, move him back to guard next year. It's not like you move him to tackle and he goes to left tackle island or right tackle island, and there's no boats back to the mainland from that. He can come back, but there's no doubt that not getting those reps, there's no doubt that it impacts his growth as a guard. Obviously, I'm Captain Obvious here, but obviously getting reps at doing the thing you're going to do makes you better at that thing. So it does impact his ability at guard, but why would you do it? Because he's a wide body. He's athletic for his size. He has repped at tackle in practice, so he does have experience there. Obviously, the coaches they at least like his ability or his potential at tackle. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had him rep there. So there are reasons to do it. I can understand those reasons. Again, I wouldn't fully love it, but this might go back to what we talked about in segment one. There might not be a good option. There might not be a great answer. And maybe this is the best bad answer that we can come up with. So I'll root for him if he's there, for sure. But I would enjoy the scenario that keeps him at guard. I'll say that. From DJ, I shortened the name because I can only have 200 characters per comment. It is easy to say we should have a top quality 2-3 deep at every position. My guess is that our NIL stretched. A lot of money was put into the D this year. I think most teams in a similar spot. Talking about, I think a point I probably made where I don't think our tackle depth was strong enough coming into the season. And listen, DJ's right. This is a good point from DJ in that it is difficult to build quality depth everywhere. Very few teams. I almost said no teams, but there's a couple. There's a couple that have quality depth everywhere. The Oregons that spend $40 million, Ohio State, Georgia. I probably would have said Bama at the beginning of the year. Obviously, maybe not. But he is right that the majority of teams, you could look at any roster outside of 3, 4, 5 and say there's a soft spot somewhere. That being said, I just continue to go back to the point I've made where one injury on the offensive line shouldn't lead to this level of cascading issues. So to me, yes, 100%. I don't expect 2 or 3 quality backups at every spot. I do expect a little more offensive line depth where one injury doesn't cause this type of ripple effect. So I think both can be true. You're totally right. But that doesn't mean the depth was good enough on offensive line this year coming into the season. Just my opinion, though. I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. It doesn't make it the right one, but that's where I'm at on this. We're 1 week into the season, and we're already desperately talking about shuffling around the offensive line. Not going to belabor that point, but I don't – it's got to be a little better than that. Let's go to the next one here. Mars, part of the reason, maybe a small part, the defense looked so good was because the offense controlled the time of possession, complementary football, the buzzword of the offseason. Mars, thank you for the comment, my friend. Absolutely. The offense dominated time of possession, 39 minutes, and the defense allowed the offense to dominate time of possession by not allowing Miami of Ohio to get the ball back. It's interesting. I had Coach Henderson on, and I meant to ping him further on this, but we were running late, and he said, there's no benefit to holding the ball longer if you don't score. And this might be another fan versus coach argument, because I kind of disagree with that. And I want to have him on to actually have that discussion, because it's not fair for me just to disagree without him being here. But I do think keeping the ball inherently means you're flipping the field. It inherently means you're shifting field position. It kind of inherently means your defensive line stays fresher. So I do think there are some advantages there, regardless of whether you score. And obviously you can't consistently put up 12 play drives where you don't score. So I get that point, but I do think there is some advantages to maintaining time of possession and controlling the clock. And Coach Anderson and I are going to go back and forth on that at some point because I would like to get his full perspective on it. All right, we're going to take a second back. We're going to take a quick second for our friends of the show. I'm sorry. But then we're going to talk a little bit about some ways they could help the offensive line this weekend. Again, continuing all with your comments and your thoughts. Locked on Badgers. Today's friends of the show over at Upside have helped bring this show to you. I apologize. I'm stumbling over my words. Guys, are we still paying full price for gasoline? There's a lot of things you probably want to pay full price for. Let's be real. You probably want to pay full price for the guy doing heart surgery on you. You probably want to pay full price for your airplane pilot. Like those are probably things not to get a discount on. But there's no reason to pay full price on the gas at the pump. What are we doing? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store, Google Play right now, and you can start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL to get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already need. And then you can take that $300 and do whatever the heck you want with it. Not going to bother me. I'm not a judge, but I'm going to judge you if you don't take advantage of this offer. At first, listen, I thought this was probably too good to be true. There's a lot of apps out there, but it's not. I make money off this, and you can cash out anytime you want. Bank account, PayPal, e-gift card, Amazon. Don't let this offer drive by. Download the free Upside app today using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers may vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Today's episode also brought to you by those incredible people over at FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Football is starting. NFL's back. College football's back. There's not a better spot to get in on that action than at football, and then at FanDuel.com. And right now, there's an incredible offer from FanDuel.com. You bet $5 and you can get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I don't know if I've ever seen them give out $300. I've done a lot of FanDuel apps. This is an amazing offer from our good friends over at FanDuel. It's quick, it's easy, and it's a great way to add a little more energy to your Saturday, to your Sunday, to your Friday, to your everyday, right over at FanDuel. Right now, if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Head over there now. You will not regret it. Okay, let's get back into this. A bunch more comments. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get into all the comments because I copied a lot of them down. But let's get to the next one. Lawrence, a couple of comments on here. Lawrence, Craig, Fissel both talked about this. Offensive line will need lots of help this season. Might need to keep a tight end to block or roll the quarterback out of the pocket to buy some time. I think you got to chip. You got to use a tight end. You got to roll the pocket. Craig Fissel has talked about using Chris Brooks to come in and kind of chip and then leak him into the flat. You're just going to have to adjust the game plan. And that's not that dissimilar from a lot of teams that are going to have to adjust their game plans going forward to account for injury or maybe players not playing as well as they thought. So this is just the Badgers version of that. I agree. I think there is going to have to be some changes to how their pass protection scheme. And maybe those changes are dictating where they're moving some of these guys as well. So I agree with that for sure. A couple comments on that. So we won't change all of them. Let's see. From Ryan, keeping my preseason prediction at 4 wins. If the defense is legit, maybe they can win 5. Ryan, not very confident, but I have my doubts that they will not be gassed later in the year. So he talked a little bit. He kept going on this comment. He talked a little bit about how the defense is going to get worn down because he doesn't think the offense is very good, which loops right back into the previous point I made. I think this offense will be able to control clock a little bit better than last year's because Grimes is going to emphasize that. They're going to run the ball a little bit more, use the tight ends, and that's where those 12-play drives. Now, can they do it against Iowa, Illinois, Indiana? We'll see. But I'm more confident that they'll do it this year than they did last year, which I think will keep the defense from getting too gassed. And on top of the fact that they like 6-7 deep now at the defensive line and at those edge spots. So despite the strong name, Ryan, which I tend to agree with. I almost always agree with Ryan's when they're in the chat. Despite the strong name, I don't think I agree with this. I think the depth on the defense is better, and I think the offensive line or the offense will control time of possession a little bit. I don't think they're going to get gassed later in the year. Craig H says defense got a B, offense got a D. This is a MAC team without hardly any returning starters. So talking about the Badgers beat a MAC team that didn't have really any returning starters left. I still don't know how can you not give the defense an A? I mean, I understand it's a MAC team, but 117 yards, 0 points, and they set up the Badgers' last touchdown. If that's not an A performance, then because I understand. Let me rephrase it like this. I'm thinking about how to answer this in my head. I think it's an A for that performance. It doesn't mean the offense is or the defense is an A defense. We have a lot more to learn about the defense, but I don't know what more you could have expected out of week one is how I would phrase it. So we'll see. I think the offense is a little better than a D. I guess I factor in the backup quarterback coming in, but I agree with you. It did struggle. This one from Arrogant Prickly. I'm going to keep coming at Ryan because he keeps having these underwhelming takes on Billy's performance. Ryan keeps bringing up that Billy didn't hit on 2 deep throws. For one, he threw a perfect pass to Joe Griffin, who was then mugged. And this continues going on. Hold on. Yeah, who was mugged. PI wasn't called. Perfect pass. These deep passes aren't layups or free throws. They are more like 3-pointers. So again, like every opinion on here is valid. Like my opinion is not worth more than anyone else's, and I'll put up people that disagree with me, that take issue with points I made. Arrogant Prickly thinks I'm being too hard on Billy, and maybe I am. To his point, and where I would probably push back a little bit. And again, I appreciate the comment. I appreciate for sure you watching the show. Where I'd push back a little bit, you talk about the deep passes aren't layups or free throws. They're more like 3-pointers. If I had a 3-point shooter that didn't hit any of his 3-pointers, I'd bench him. I wouldn't be happy with that either. Like part of the reason you bring Billy Edwards in as that experienced quarterback is to hit those 3-pointers when they're there. And they were open. They weren't wide open in the sense that the DBs fell down, but those are makeable passes that you have to hit. And you don't get as much rope if you're a senior quarterback, right? You're expected to hit the open throws. So again, I've said this a bunch of times. It does not mean I'm out on Billy. Like 2 throws do not make it the quarterback whatsoever. I still think he can do a lot of really nice things for this offense, but you got to hit the open throws. You got to hit the open deep throws. It's as simple as that for me. But again, I recognize the fact that that's my opinion, and I appreciate yours as well, my friend. Dexy says we already see improvement. Defense looks much better. Offense is in a 3-and-out multi-turnover machine. Competent football. I love this comment. Competent football. It looked more competent. I 100% agree. Go back to last year against Western Michigan. That game was a dogfight in the fourth quarter. Like we were like, dude, this game felt like Wisconsin was in control. Again, don't take too much out of it, but don't ignore it either. Wisconsin dominated on defense, which they weren't able to do last year at any point, and the offense looked more competent, in my opinion. Not a ton more competent on offense, but it looked better. Competent football, I think, is a great word here. BD travels. My concern is that we only had 65,000 in Camp Randall when we should have had at least 85K. Fan sentiment is at its lowest in decades due to administrative failures. Also due to winning 5 games last year, right? Like this team needs to win to generate some hype. So I was at the game. I was in that 65,000. I thought it was a good environment, but there were a decent amount of empty seats for an opening night, for an opening game. Now, Thursday night matters. It was a late Thursday night game. A lot of people work Friday. But I did expect to see a few more people there. So I don't fully disagree with BD Travels. Rick Thayer, for as good as OT, or for as good as we were told offensive line recruiting is, we seem very thin at tackle. Am I wrong? I think you're right on both those things. I think offensive line recruiting the last couple of years has been really good. I firmly believe that. You look 2 years ago and you get the Haywood, the Cubberly, Roski. Those are good players. Ryan Corey, Emerson Mandel. Mandel's already starting as a redshirt freshman. Haywood was starting as a redshirt freshman. Corey and Cubberly are firmly in that 2 deep. And then you look back to last year and you have Nolan Davenport, who's a really good get. Logan Powell, Hardy Watts. You know, these are really good gets, but they're young. So they are thin at tackle, but they're thin at tackle because, as Rajiv and I talked about, in 2023, they didn't land anybody. And you have Nelson that's been banged up, Benchwell's been banged up. You had guys like Rucci transfer out, Trey Wettig transfer out. You know, so you're missing that next layer of guys that should be there. So the last 2 years have been really strong in recruiting, but those guys aren't fully ready yet. You're going to see the fruits of that labor a couple years down the road. So I think you're right on both accounts, Rick. And I appreciate the comment for sure. Dice One Gaming. Defensive line looked fantastic. So glad To see Brendan Lane get more reps this year. Boys were buzzing. Great comment. Brendan Lane looked phenomenal for a guy that basically didn't play last year. I'm really happy to see him out there. This one is from, let me see if I got this in here. This one is from DJB. He said, to Ryan, Pro Football Focus is great for stats, reps, drops, sacks, etc. They are fans, not coaches, and are trained to watch for certain things, but they know very little and don't always understand line play. There's a reason NFL teams have their own scouts. Please don't use them at all for your evaluation of a player or a game. Otherwise, I love the show. Dude, DJB, thank you for jumping on this, man, and throwing your comment in here. I'll say this about PFF, and this is what I always say about PFF. I like them as a data point. I would never say, and I agree with you, they are great for reps and stats and total snaps, those kind of things. I never use PFF as like the be all end all. They are never my PFF says this, so I say this. I use them as a data point. You know, if I watch a guy and I don't think he looked very good and PFF says he was terrible, or I'm kind of like, oh, that kind of correlates with what I'm seeing. They watch every snap of every game. So I'm not going to just discount it because I think there's value there. But I also keep it in the context of this is a human who's probably not a coach, right? And there's going to be varying degrees of quality to the output there. So that's how I look at PFF. It's definitely not something I treat as the holy grail, but it is a data point I like to look at. A couple more comments here. Again, I'm not going to get to everything. I apologize. UMC 2673. Appreciate the service, by the way. I'm guessing you were in the Marine Corps. I'm a Bama fan. Watched the game. I thought Wisconsin much improved from last year. On defense, 15 and 22 are really good football players. I've never agreed with an Alabama fan more. No, appreciate you jumping in, man. And the Grogan says, really hate to say it, but I feel like I don't feel good about the season. It's a MAC team that lost a lot. We're going to miss a bowl again. I hope not. I can absolutely understand and respect somebody watching week one and saying, I didn't love all this. I don't have a warm and fuzzy. I can absolutely respect and understand that. I do think we're better than we were last year. I think we looked more competent than we were last year, to parrot a message, our post we used earlier. I think it's more competent. And last year's team won 5 games. So if I think we're more competent than last year and we won 5 last year, I tend to think 6 or 7 is probably on the table, which gets us to a bowl game. 6 or 7 is not great, but it's progress. I think it's a bowl game. Anyway, appreciate everybody for making comments. I like to do these shows once in a while to get the community involved. Really do appreciate all of y'all so much. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. Really quick, go check out what Locked On is doing with Locked On for college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts at college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. Appreciate y'all on Wisconsin, and we will definitely talk tomorrow.